money and finance is a key consideration. So we're just going to give you a couple of short ideas about financial and tax issues before you plan your new life in Portugal. So without delay, I'd like to ask our first speaker, who's a chamber member, and he's called Matthew Krystman, and he's a partner at Blevins Franks, which offers tax and financial advice for UK nationals in Portugal, or moving to Portugal. So Sharon.
My name is Matthew Krystman. I'm a partner at Blevins Franks, and I'm going to talk to you about some financial planning aspects of moving to Portugal. First of all, I'd like to thank the Chamber, once again, Christina, for putting this on. Very professional as ever. We started doing this actually in 2016, so it's nice to be doing this 6 years on, and many of the people we met at this presentation, we guided them through the process of moving to Portugal, and are looking after them the other end in Portugal. So, I live in Portugal. I live in Lisbon. I lived there for 20 years, and yes, it is as good as it looks on the video. So, yes, if you're moving there, you certainly won't regret it. Now, coming on to the slideshow, I'm going to talk about 3 areas in this. First of all, Blevins Franks, who we are and what we do. Then I'm going to talk about cross-border financial planning in terms of leaving the UK tax net, what we do with people and moving to Portugal. And the final part is a case study about on the ground, what we do on an ongoing basis for our clients in Portugal. So a few figures for you there in terms of Blevins Franks. We've been in Portugal for 45 years. We work in 7 countries, France, Spain, Portugal, the UK, Cyprus, Malta, and Monaco. We have 25 offices, but the most important number you'll see there is the number 54. That's the number of licensed, regulated individuals, advisors we have on the ground in our core countries advising our clients. And we're supported by 200 employees, and we're also supported by, we look after over 5,000 families, and we manage around just over 3 billion under management. So in terms of Blevins Franks, what we do in terms of our specialism and our advisors is that we do have a deep understanding, because we've been doing this, as I say, for 45 years. But our advisors, we're there, we're living in the country. And as I say, I've been here in Portugal for 20 years. We've got Gavin Scott, senior partner here, who's been in Portugal for 25 years. We have 2 offices, one in the Algarve, one in Lisbon. We're just outside Lisbon in Cascais. And all of our advisors and all our support staff live in the country. So if you're moving there, the ongoing advice and service can be given for people that are actually living there and not flying in and flying out. We're also supported by a tax specialist, our company tax advisory service team. In terms of more complicated cross-border taxation, we have that support from our London office. And as I say, the cross-border expertise that I'll come to in terms of something called a roadmap. And really, just to sum up in terms of what we do, it's tax-driven, strategic financial planning advice, and wealth management, which delivers, at the end of the day, peace of mind. Okay, that's lovely Porto. If you haven't been there, I recommend it hugely. Now, the tax benefits of Portugal, a lot of people will have read about this non-habitual residency, NHR, which is a 10-year tax break that I'll go into. But Portugal offers a lot more than just NHR. It also offers a very attractive tax regime post-NHR, so people staying beyond the 10 years, it's extremely fiscally beneficial. But also there's no gift tax, there's no wealth tax, and there's no inheritance tax in Portugal. Now, if you compare that to its neighbours, for example, Spain and France, it is outside NHR as well, extremely favourable on the tax side. A roadmap. So, in terms of moving to Portugal, the advice process can start here in the UK with our UK office and our UK advisors. Okay, the advice process would start with, of course, as British nationals now, needing a visa to live in Portugal. And then it's looking at the things you can do before leaving the UK tax net. So many of you, if you are company directors, there's things that you possibly need advice on to become tax optimal in Portugal. and then looking at investments and pensions. There are things that should be looked at before you leave the UK, because clearly those structures might not be too favourable moving to Portugal. So possibly restructuring those, taking advantage of unused capital gains tax allowances, selling UK property, benefiting from principal private residence relief, and pensions, qualifying recognised overseas pension schemes, QROPs, is looking at if that works for you in terms of transferring to a QROPs, which at the end of the day is an EU SIP. Now, then on the other part of the slide, moving to Portugal, we advise on something called the statutory residence test, which is once you've left the UK, the ties you have with the UK, the amount of days you can spend back in the UK. But on the ground in Portugal, we can help you with the residence process, and then looking at other areas such as purchasing property in Portugal, wills, and on the financial planning side, is taking funds down from possibly UK companies tax efficiently under NHR, and also looking at Portuguese compliant and tax efficient investments. So that is what we call a strategic financial planning report, and is certainly recommendable. So that's the first part of it. But of course, at Blevins Franks, because we have offices in the Algarve and in Cascais, and the Cascais office does advise people moving as far north as Porto and the Minho, is that we offer this ongoing advice as well with our local offices. So with the ongoing advice, I'm going to run through with you a case study of a Mr. and Mrs. Green moving to Portugal, and the type of areas that are advisable and beneficial. So, Mr. and Mrs. Green, they're in their late 50s, they have a company and they're taking salary and dividends, standard way. Mr. Green has a SIP, UK SIP, which is close to his lifetime allowance. It's a value of $1 million, and his wife has a final salary pension scheme. They have a main home that they jointly own. They have some UK investments, some ISAs, and they have some cash deposits, money on deposits as well. So, in terms of the advice that we provide, we can split it into three areas in terms of income planning, pension planning, and investment planning. So the first area with income planning is looking at, well, first of all, they'll have sold the UK property, bought a property in Portugal, they'll retain shares. This is important, retaining shares and to take dividends from that UK company. Because on the income side, this NHR, non-habitual residency, for 10 years, as the slide says, for 10 years they can draw down from those dividends tax-free in Portugal. It's tax exempt in Portugal. And if they apply for disregarded income treatment in the UK, and get the UK to disregard it, it's both disregarded in the UK and in Portugal. So clearly, increasing their dividends, reducing the salary, creates a highly tax-efficient income stream. Now, moving on to pensions, there are a number of considerations for advice with pensions. Now, first of all, I alluded to it earlier, the qualifying recognised overseas pension schemes. For our clients in Mr. and Mrs. Green, Mr. Green, as I mentioned before, his pension is quite close to the lifetime allowance. And the consideration there is advice that we provide is looking at those UK pensions and looking if it's worthwhile, and best advice for them to move to this EU type of SIP, this QROPS. Benefits being is that once you've moved to a QROPS, any growth above the lifetime allowance going forward is never tested again. So it could be highly tax efficient in terms of lifetime allowance charge. Also, the consideration is back in the UK before leaving, taking pension commencement lump sums, because anyone over the age of 55 can do that. And of course, pension commencement lump sums are tax-free in the UK. So these are the considerations people need to look at. And then further on in Portugal, the pension planning, the advice around that is how to draw down that pension. And pension in Portugal under NHR are taxed 10% flat rate. So as I said, the dividends are no tax, pensions are taxed at 10%, which is pretty tax efficient. And some people look at drawing that pension down over NHR over that period and drawing that down at 10%, because once NHR finishes, pensions are taxed at a higher rate. Drawing down those pensions, putting into something more tax efficient going forward, which I'll come on to, which is the investment side. But at Blevins Franks, we have our own in-house pension scheme that can look at your pensions and look at what is best advice for you. Is it keeping it in the UK or is it moving it overseas? Another benefit of these QIR ops is that you can create an income stream in euros, and you can also move the pension outside the UK pension legislation. Any changes in future pension legislation won't affect you because your pension will be outside that. Okay, now coming on to the final part, which is investment planning. Mr. and Mrs. Green, we all know inflation at the moment is the big elephant in the room, and investing to make sure that, of course, with cash on deposit, the interest rates might be rising, but we all know that inflation is, of course, rising faster than that. So they need to invest it for growth, and they're going to need to invest it within their attitude to risk and to diversify it globally to make sure that it is a globally balanced portfolio. And really, with the considerations and planning for Mr. and Mrs. Green is selling the UK property. There's some extra cash left over, £500,000. And then looking at UK ISAs, importantly, this is very, very importantly, is that Portugal do not recognise UK ISAs. So if you move to Portugal with those ISAs and draw down from them, then they'll treat them as standard investments. So much of the advice around this is a lot of people sell the UK ISAs and start in a tax neutral position again in Portugal and look at their own Portuguese versions of ISAs. These Portuguese versions of ISAs are they're qualifying life policies. You get the same gross roll up of income and gains inside a life policy. And they're very, very commonly used in Portugal to roll up investments inside it, take income down under NHR at 10%, and then add to it, add the pension money to the qualifying life policy. So when NHR is finished, you're drawing down from a tax efficient investment and not drawing down from a pension that's taxed at scale rates. So the main benefits of the reduced taxation is after 5 and 8 years, but clearly there's a lot to be done financial planning wise with pensions, investments and dividends to make sure you're tax optimal in Portugal. One thing is NHR and the benefits it provides, but the most important side is your financial planning to take full advantage of it. Okay, so that's the case study. We are here all day. Sharon will be presenting this afternoon. We have a stand in the other room. You can come to us. We're here all day, and with any questions you have. But really, if I can summarise, there are opportunities of moving to Portugal. It's not just lifestyle. There's huge financial planning opportunities, but the timing is critical. It's getting the advice in the UK before you leave to really, in a sense, get your ducks lined up so you walk into Portugal in the most tax optimal position. And at Blevins Franks, we have our London office if people need to see anyone in London, but we have the partners in Portugal as well. You can subscribe to our e-newsletter and receive regular updates with that. But of course, there's nothing better than face-to-face. If you want to come and have a chat with us, we're literally